So let's talk about something. It's a really personal question, and it feels more relevant now than ever. How do you, as a person of faith, figure out who you are in a world that feels so incredibly polarized? Let's jump in.
All right, first things first. Let's just take a look around at the environment we're all living in. It is a world full of loud, competing voices, and honestly, it can be totally overwhelming trying to navigate all that noise. And it's not just noise, is it? It feels like everywhere you look, whether it's online or in real life, the opinions are just so intense. It's like everything is dialed up to 11, with very little room for nuance or just being unsure. Yeah, and we're not just talking about simple disagreements here. We're seeing something much deeper, these foundational divides that seem to be getting wider every single day, sorting all of us into different camps. From political movements and cultural identities to all sorts of social labels, there's just this constant, relentless pressure to pick a side, to declare your allegiance and let that choice define who you are. And that brings us right to the heart of it all. In the middle of all that noise, there's this quiet question that so many Christians are asking themselves. Who am I really as a follower of Christ in today's America? When every group is demanding your loyalty, what's the real thing? So how does all this polarization actually affect people of faith? Because it's not just some external pressure happening out there. It has a way of seeping into the most personal parts of our lives. And these tensions, they show up in really concrete ways. You see it around the dinner table. You feel it in church communities that are supposed to be a refuge. Even close friendships can start to feel fragile. These huge societal divisions create these small but really painful personal fractures. And here's the core problem, right? Faith, the very thing that should be a source of peace and clarity, it gets all tangled up in these external arguments. And the result? We're often left feeling spiritually exhausted and just confused. But it's really important to get some perspective here. As crazy as things feel right now, this isn't a uniquely modern problem. Not at all. From the very beginning, Christians have had to figure out how to live as people of faith in the middle of fractured, divided societies. Okay, so if the world around us is always shifting and making demands, where do we find a stable foundation? This brings us to a really important idea: finding a true anchor for our identity. Now, this is such a powerful contrast to consider. Is our core identity based on a position? Our political party, our stance on an issue, an ideology? Because those things can and do change. Or is it based on a person? The answer presented here is just crystal clear. For a Christian, the primary identity, the one that comes before everything else, isn't a label or a movement. It's a person, Jesus Christ. And this scriptural quote really drives that idea home. Now, this doesn't mean we just check out from the world around us. Not at all. But it completely reorients our sense of belonging. It suggests our deepest, truest loyalty transcends any earthly division or national border. So, if our identity is truly rooted in a person, what does that person's life teach us? Let's explore the way Jesus himself lived, because he offers a powerful model for how to navigate a world that was, believe it or not, just as divided as our own. What's so fascinating here is how Jesus handled his divided society. He didn't fit neatly into any of the factions of his day. The Roman political powers, the various religious sects, he spoke truth to all of them, he showed incredible mercy, he absolutely challenged injustice, but, and this is so crucial, he refused to reduce people to simple labels. He always looked past the external stuff to see the heart. And this brings us to a really key concept, this quiet danger of letting an ideology shape our faith. It's subtle. It's what happens when we start filtering our beliefs through a political or social lens instead of filtering our politics and our social views through the lens of our faith. And the alternative that Jesus teaches, well, it's radically different from the shouting matches we see all the time. It's a path that's not defined by being right, but by humility. Not by speaking over others, but by listening. And not by winning an argument, but by love. So how does this all become practical? How do we take these big ideas and actually live them out day to day in our polarized world? Well, the idea here is that it doesn't require us to have a louder voice. It requires a gentler walk. Here are 4 really actionable ways to do that. First, we speak with truth, but it must be paired with charity. Second, we have to actively refuse to see those we disagree with as less than human. Third, it means having the courage to follow your conscience, even when it puts you at odds with your side. And all of it hinges on that final point, keeping Christ at the absolute center of it all. And this is just such an encouraging thought. It suggests that a faith-based identity doesn't need to be defended with anger or aggression. It isn't fragile. In fact, it's like a muscle that grows stronger through the quiet, consistent practices of patience, prayer, and love.
And this quote, this really gets to the heart of why that strength is possible. In a world of constant change, endless outrage, and shifting allegiances, this identity is anchored in someone who is presented as unchanging. That is the source of its stability.
As we come to a close, let's just land on this core principle, especially for anyone out there feeling weary or uncertain. In a world that demands you constantly prove your worth and your allegiance, this is a completely different message. Your identity isn't an achievement to be won or a position to be defended. It's a gift, something to be received, to be rested in, and to be lived out of, not something you have to strive for. So, the final takeaway is this simple but incredibly profound statement. In the face of all the noise and all the demands, resting in this gifted identity is enough. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. If these reflections were helpful, we hope you'll join us again.